Hi there, Scott with Seaman Custom Builds. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I've partnered with the folks at Forced to Home to demonstrate how you can use their premium hardwoods delivered to your door to make a simple cutting board. Stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the process.
For this project, we're using two pieces of cherry, maple, and walnut, each 1 by 2 by 36 inch. So the first step was to cut them in half, so our board will be roughly 18 inches long. Next, we apply Titebond's No. 3 wood glue. This is both waterproof and considered food safe. We spread it out evenly across each board, making sure we have enough that we don't have any dry spots. Once the glue is applied, we move on to clamping these up. This is where you can lay out the pattern or design for your board.
Alright, so this sat up overnight. I usually like to give at least 24 hours. No point in rushing it. Now we can remove the clamps and move on to the next steps. Alright, so the boards came an even width, so that's my thickness. I wasn't too careful gluing them up to get them even because I have a planer and I'm not worried about it. If you don't have access to a planer though, you might want to put a little more thought and detail into lining up, getting a good smooth edge. This step could also be completed with a hand plane, power planer. If you don't have one, maybe there's a local woodworking group, somebody nearby that would let you run a couple passes through. Bring them a little gift, some extra wood, a 6-pack, something, and just trade off for that. Okay, so let's quickly talk a little safety using a planer. You shouldn't be scared of it. They're loud, so obviously hearing protection, eye protection is always a good call. If at all possible, have some kind of dust collection hose or bag. These things will create a lot of wood chips in a hurry. And it's just easier to not have to clean that up later. Also, don't stand in front of the feed in to the planer. If for some reason the rollers that pull the boards through lose contact, that blade is spinning fast and that means your wood comes out just as quickly.
Starting with the flattest side down, I make multiple passes through the planer, taking off just a little bit with each pass. Once that side's even, we flip it over and run it with the other side up. Now we can really get an idea of what it's going to look like.
As you can see here, we're pretty uniform thickness all the way across. Got a couple little gaps that, because I didn't run these through the joiner or planer to start with, I'll fill. Backside. Pretty good there. For this board, I'm going to use Starbond's medium brown. I think that'll blend in from previous experiences pretty well. So start by filling our hole a little bit. And you definitely want the accelerator, otherwise it will take forever to dry. And within about 15 to 30 seconds, it hardens over. Just go ahead and check for any other spots on this side before we flip it. I think we're pretty good. There's a few little things here at the end, but we're going to nip that off. We got this long crack, it's the same process. I really like to bench cookies from Rockler. I've got a grid of holes that fit a little stud under each one to hold them in place. They keep it from moving around, they keep it from scratching on anything. Also feel like it quiets it down a little bit. We'll put it on there, kind of holds it around as we work. Again, the sander's loud, the vac's loud. We want hearing protection. I will start with an 80 grit just to bring it down more quickly. Move up to 120. We'll water pop, and then we'll go to 220. It'll be where I finish off. We'll have to cut off our ends nice and square. We'll also think about what we want to do for edge treatment. So let's get sanding.
So So what I like about these boards from Forest to Home is they've already surfaced all 4 sides. That leaves about a 15th, 16th thickness and doesn't require you to have a joiner or planer to work with. A light sanding maybe, and you're ready to go. Once that side's done, we'll flip our board and get the back side. Then we'll switch up to our 120 grit disc and hit both sides once again.
So I like to use my table saw sled. It's dialed in, it is very accurate, and for wider boards I just feel like it's easier to get a good cut, especially when it's thick like that. Over my miter saw, nothing wrong with the miter saw. Use what you have. If you have a miter saw, use a circular saw with a straight edge as a guide. Set you up on the table saw. Hand saw, use what you got. This is all about being able to make it without having a fancy set of tools in your shop. I've been lucky to build mine up to this, but my first cutting boards, I didn't have half the equipment I have now, so still turned out nice. But again, hearing protection, safety glasses. We're going to watch our fingers and keep those clear of the blade. Make a couple cuts here, and then decide what we do for the edge. All right, so for router, I just use a little palm router. I bought the plunge base. It's nice for finer adjustments than the fixed base. Not a requirement. You can see in here we're going to use a chamfer bit. This gives us a 45-degree angle edge. So for the top side, I'm just going to take a little bit off just to soften that edge. For the bottom, I'm going to go as deep as my blade can go, so I get a nice undercut where you can pick it up with your fingers when it's sitting on your flat countertop. Again, safety glasses, hearing protection. This thing's loud and dusty. I will have mine hooked up to the vac system. That will help. You could easily just break the edge with some sandpaper and be on to the next step. All right, so you can see even with dust collection, the router makes a mess, but we've got a nice deep bevel on this side, smaller on the back. There's a few spots when we sand, we'll want to make sure we get these burn marks out. That's kind of the difference in knowing what you're doing and not, is leaving little things like that. Just getting to the details. Also, why did I choose this as the back? This had the larger crack that I filled. Put that on the back, don't put that on the front.
Now we'll do a quick hit on those new routed edges with the 120 grit paper.
Then I like to hit the corners with a sanding block. I don't like to use a power sander because you might get more than you want. Just want to break that corner a little bit. All right, so we might feel like it's pretty smooth at this point, but if you know anything about wood, it's porous. When it gets wet, you get little fibers. So to help keep it smooth after we're done with it, we're gonna spray with water. I just use a cheap spray bottle, get a wet paper towel. It doesn't have to be saturated, just enough to get it wet and let it dry pretty fast. Also nice, you really see the color start to come out when you do this. This walnut, maple, cherry, maple, walnut. It's gonna look great. Now we'll wait for it to dry. All right, now that the board is dry from the water pop, we'll hit it with the random orbital sander, 220 grit, just to take off that little fuzz we raised. Now using a rag or a tack cloth, we want to get all the loose dust off before we seal it. All right, now that we are ready to oil up, I've got a little tray to catch so I don't get oil on my workbench. I am going with walrus oil, cutting board oil. I've been using this for a number of years now. Really happy with the results. We just want to make sure we shake it up good before we start. We leave it on. It says 12 to 24 hours. I always go 24 as a minimum. If there's any spots that look dry, reapply. After that, we'll wipe up any oil that's puddled on it, let it air dry out, and then it's ready to be used.
And here is the finished board, beautifully displayed on a countertop, ready for use. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for new video notifications, like, comment, and share. There's also a link below to any tools or products used during this video.